world moves fast. Your workday? Even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
This episode is brought to you by Peloton. Break through the busiest time of year with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. With real-time guidance and endless ways to move, you can personalize your workouts and train with confidence, helping you reach your goals in less time. Let yourself run, lift, sculpt, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Welcome in. Wow, there's a lot to cover tonight. You'll learn a lot of things on tonight's program. Here is just one of them. Think AI will make everyone at work a genius? Not so fast. The real productivity gain from AI might be using it and knowing when it's right and when you're wrong. In about 10 minutes' time, we'll reveal why self-awareness might be your real AI power skill. Then after that, should we really have a system where you can invest on the outcome of war? Well, one exists in the US, and we'll dive into the horrific consequences of it later in the hour. That's just some of the show. Let's dive in. When it comes to climate change, you might expect solutions from scientists, politicians, maybe even well-meaning billionaires. Probably not, though. But according to new research, one of the most powerful climate influencers who could help you might be your hairdresser. I'm here with someone who recently researched this. His name is Sam Hampton. He's a social scientist at both the University of Bath and Oxford in the UK. Sam, what a joy it is to have you on the program.
Thank you very much for having me here.
So your academic paper is titled Public Engagement and Climate Change, Exploring the Role of Hairdressers as Everyday Influencers. What made you want to look at hairdressers' role in climate change? It seems like such an unlikely connection for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually work in public engagement and climate change quite broadly, but I'm also interested in the role of small businesses and have done that for a long time. And so the two things kind of came together. Hairdressers are obviously mostly small businesses. There are millions of them around the world in every community. So I kind of came to this from a slightly more boring technical, who uses lots of energy and water and resources angle. And then when someone mentioned hairdressers, I was like, this could be really interesting, because what are hairdressers famous for? They're famous for talking to people, not for, being energy consumers, which is ultimately one of the things we want to do, is help them to reduce their environmental impact. But actually, when we think about what's needed to tackle climate change, it's not just reducing our consumption. It's also like spreading the word, building social movements, getting people to vote for the right kind of policies and parties. And actually, if we can help get those messages out through basically what our hairdressers are like, actually kind of trusted communicators embedded in communities, then what that could be really effective.
We all see celebrities at the Oscars or the BAFTAs making big statements about the climate and big political statements. But to me, these direct conversations you have with people in your community, it's no surprise now that I think about it that a hairdresser and a client could be a powerful place for a conversation like that. What makes these sort of interpersonal, not watching celebrities talk about it or influencers, what makes these conversations such a powerful tool?
Well, I mean, as you say, it's a two-way conversation. As much as we'd love to have a conversation with Leo, right? And all these kind of high-profile leaders. And of course, those people are important. In fact, it might be that you talk about those celebrities and, I don't know, Taylor Swift's private jets or whatever it is at the hairdresser. But it's that ability to actually engage people in a two-way conversation that I think is really effective.
I love this phrase, everyday influencers. What does this mean? This comes up in your research?
Well, yeah, it's something that we think we coined from this. Right, I did lots of Googling and I couldn't find it anywhere else. So it's this idea. We all know about the rise of the influencer. Now every 13-year-old kid wants to be an influencer when they grow up, right? And what we think of is, Kylie Jenner and all of those people with millions of followers. But actually, I think if you think about the concept of influence, that happens in a much more local way. You probably the most influential people are your parents and your teachers and your friends and family, right? So actually, if you think about the kind of science of influence, those everyday influencers have just as much power as those high profile leaders.
So how do you even test this? How do you set up an experiment? Do you ask certain hairdressers to bring up certain topics and then interview the people whose hair they cut or worked on to see if it swayed their opinion? Like, how do you frame an experiment to come to the conclusion that hairdressers can be a powerful tool with climate change?
Yeah, a really good question. And we did a bit of that in this study. Some colleagues that we co-wrote the paper with at the University of Southampton did exactly that. So they asked hairdressers to put QR codes and stick them on the mirrors. And that would just be a kind of, oh, what's this? And so someone curious would just scan the QR code and it would give them a prompt, maybe a conversation starter, or a fact, like, did you know that, it's completely unnecessary to wash your hair more than 3 times a week, and yet most people do. Those kinds of things, don't believe the adverts. Or even just something else, any kind of statistic or something to bring up with your hairdresser. So they in that study found that was a really effective way to engage, and obviously it's a pretty easy thing for a hairdresser to do, just stick a sticker on. We then went and spoke to members of the Green Salon Collective, and there are hundreds of sustainable salons around the UK, and we just asked the hairdressers and the stylists, you're obviously passionate yourself about sustainability. Do you try to build this into conversation? So we did both. Well, colleagues did that kind of experimental research design, and then we just did a more kind of discovery, what's going on here, and found that, there was a lot. These people actively tried to bring in climate into their everyday conversations.
I care about this planet. I believe in climate change, but assuming I'm someone skeptical, okay? My name's Bob. I don't think about climate change much. I don't know what to think about it. If I sit in my hairdresser's chair and they start a conversation like this with me, how likely am I to change my views or actually start caring or change my behavior?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I get it from some of the comments that we've had, from the social media that we've posted around this. There are plenty of people who think this is highly inappropriate. So I get that, and basically what the stylists and hairdressers told us was they're not idiots, right? They're really good at reading people and gauging the kind of thing that's going to work with different people. So they might drop in something quite subtle, and just they get the message. This is not the person to be talking about this with, or they might start with something much more neutral, like, oh, isn't it terrible that California's had so many wildfires recently? Even Bob, who doesn't give a crap about climate change, is going to hopefully give a crap about millions of animals and people losing their homes and that kind of thing.
But what is the amount of influence that hairdressers can have? Coming out of a session where a hairdresser is subtly trying to start this conversation with me, how likely am I to change my habits based on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And a couple of things. One is that it's often the triangulation of multiple sources, right? It's you saw it on the news. Your aunt mentioned something, and now your hairdresser's talking about it. So it's not the only kind of intervention, and so it's really difficult to measure cause and effect. But what we did find is that hairdressers found they were more comfortable talking about hair and hair care because it's kind of what they know, and so that stuff around use the different types of product. This product is better for the environment. It uses less chemicals, or something around the frequency of hair washing. And that's actually one of the biggest impacts, right? If you wash your hair twice a day, you're going to have a much bigger environmental impact. So there is a more direct link there.
Taking a step back, what does this research say about how social change actually spreads? I'm remembering the Save the Whales campaign in the 90s. Does it need to be a big public campaign, or is it more about these tiny conversations that happen in places like salons, barber shops, maybe at the grocery store?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a boring answer is it's got to be both. You know, I don't know if you or your listeners have seen the news about climate change. It's pretty serious. It's pretty like we need to throw everything at this problem. And so, yes, we need public campaigns. Yes, we need government policy. But the way that we get government policy and a really effective, transformative policies is to build a groundswell of public support for that stuff, right? So, you know, if we're going to start, taxing flying in a serious way, we need people to want that and vote for it. And that comes from those grocery store conversations.
Sam Hampton is a social scientist at the University of Bath and Oxford in the UK. Sam, I've enjoyed the chat. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Coming up next, according to a new study, AI used in the workplace doesn't reward the smartest people. Instead, it rewards the most self-aware. The real productivity hack, knowing your own limit.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Close your eyes, exhale, feel your body relax, and let go of whatever you're carrying today.
Well, I'm letting go of the worry that I wouldn't get my new contacts in time for this class. I got them delivered free from 1-800-CONTACTS. Oh my gosh, they're so fast.
And breathe.
Oh, sorry. I almost couldn't breathe when I saw the discount they gave me on my first order. Oh, sorry. Namaste.
Visit 1-800-CONTACTS.com today to save on your first order.
1-800-CONTACTS.
The last show with David Cooper. Procrastinate your life away with us.
I'm sure you've heard the buzz about AI making workers smarter, faster, more productive, but a new study suggests the real secret might be something a little more human. Workers who know what they're good at, who know what their strengths are, and when it's time to let AI take the wheel, those are the ones that benefit the most from these new tools. I'm here with someone who worked on that study. He is an economics professor at NYU. His name is Andrew Caplin. Andrew, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
I think there's a lot of doom and gloom, a lot of fear-mongering about AI taking people's jobs and other people being forced to be overly productive. What I like about your study is it frames things like, who are these tools good for? What is it about self-awareness at the helm of me using AI that'll make me a better worker with it?
Well, you know, what we were looking for is to find out what skills, this is a wide open question, what skills help people work with an AI? And we found that a way underrated skill is your ability to listen to what the AI tells you. So, for example, when you're looking at a medical image, if the AI says it's 95% likely, you know, to have a particular condition, you better be able to say, well, I knew anyway. The doctors will often say, I knew, I'll overrule 100%. That's rubbish. You know, I know the answer. And typically they're wrong. Often they're miscalibrated. They're way overconfident in their beliefs and they can't listen.
I do think knowing your own limits and being self-aware is probably a good skill to have independent of AI, isn't it?
I don't know. It doesn't pay in many branches of that I've been observing. You know, I'm not sure it's been working in politics. I don't think it works in medicine. You have to appear very confident. And it doesn't work actually in the false art of predicting the future under AI, in which everybody gets to be Nostradamus and tells you what's going to happen.
Let's start with this basic idea of calibration. When someone says they're well calibrated, what does that mean? Why does that make me excellent using AI if I am well calibrated?
Well, it means that when you think something is 70% likely, it's roughly objectively 70% likely. When you're very confident that something is true, 95 to 100%, it had better be true 95 to 100% of the time. Those are the kind of things that can be checked, and the evidence shows that many, many people, and in many circumstances, are 95% sure and 60% right. And that's not a very comfortable thing. But imagine then you get an AI that tells you something and it's only rationally like 85% confident. And you say, it's just a fool. I see so much better. I won't listen to it.
There's a surprising finding in your study that I love because I'm not a very bright individual. It's that lower skill workers who have a good measure of their own ability benefit the most from AI.
Yes, absolutely. And in the particular thing we studied, it was like the AI is helpful and it's a little bit better, than you if this isn't your great speciality, but you better recognize that and then you can become pretty good yourself. So that's the root.
So it's a logical following that the AI is making the less able, the less skilled among us better, as long as they have a good sense of self-awareness?
Self-awareness is critical, but no, I would give a big fat caveat to that.
Okay.
The caveat is, and the thing that I'm currently most interested in is whether, in fact, it's about being good at asking questions and listening to answers. So my own take is that the biggest, generalizing out of that study, the biggest skills are can you listen, but not only can you listen, in the words with large language models, do you know how to ask questions? Do you understand the limits and the skills of the party you're talking with? Because with a large language model, that's your job. I mean, I use a large language model a lot, and I am constantly editing it, but I'm nevertheless listening. So that's the skill. Can you listen, but can you recognize where you're the expert and where the LLM is the expert? And if I was to say a big picture, I would say it helps in more complicated activities. It helps those who plan best. In simpler activities, it helps those with lower skill who understand themselves. It's a bit of a continuum there.
No, I think that's a fair way to frame it. Let's talk about high ability people who are highly intelligent, very good at their craft, but overestimate their ability nonetheless. That's a very easy group to hate. That's a very easy group
absolutely.
to find annoying. And as it turns, that group, it looks like they're not great at using AI because even when AI is right, they're like, no, I know better.
Exactly. The I know better thing is a huge deal. And I mean, I can't think of the biggest professions in the world have I know better written all over them. Medicine is a fantastic case where you'll often have doctors saying, they've asked doctors to give probabilities in difficult cases, and they say, why should I bother? I know.
That should never be anyone's answer.
That's
ever.
Nobody ever knows anything. The only thing that you do know is if they said that, they're a bit of an idiot.
So what exactly was the experiment? Like, how do we come to all these conclusions that we're talking about?
But it's actually quite hard to find cases that work. And there are many, many constraints on doing a good study. We found judging people of age, whether they're over or under 21, to be a good case study, because even the AI finds that super difficult. And there are sometimes cues that a human might recognize better than an AI. So it's not obvious who's the winner. In fact, in the best of the human subjects were better than the AI, but the AI was better than the average subject. And we offered them both, why don't you try judging this yourself? Then why don't you listen to what an AI has to say? Then why don't you listen to what an AI has to say, and then judge yourself? And produce the answer you'd like, which is how likely is this person to be over 21? Beautiful bank of images, very, very stark. It's not exactly, the biggest task in my life, but if you're a bouncer, maybe it is, but that's about it. So that was the task, but it's a precursor for, a much bigger set of things that can now be studied, particularly with large language models. So much more where that came from.
This idea of calibration, how self-aware I am. Look, I was not born the most self-aware person socially. And so what I did was I went to therapy. I see a therapist once a week. I know that's not the same as like professional calibration, but I guess my question is it trainable? Can it be taught?
That's the biggest question. That is the biggest question. We're trying a little bit of a game. I can tell you, we are trying to train in a particular set of medical images. We're trying to train people off saying 99% when they don't have a clue. And and we're succeeding a tiny bit. But the much bigger game is to what extent is working well with an AI trainable. And it's my conjecture that it is quite a great deal more than we know, and that's where we need to put our energy. I believe it's doable, but I believe you have to be thinking a great deal harder about questions and answers to work that out. And you actually have to start training people to ask good questions and to listen to the answers.
Well, I think folks would be very interested in your research, especially ones that are scared about AI either replacing them or the requirement to become great at AI to keep their jobs. It's an interesting area, and Andrew Caplin is an economics professor at NYU. Andrew, I've enjoyed this chat. Thanks for coming on the show and sharing your research.
Thank you so much.
Did you know The Last Show posts videos of the interviews you've been hearing on social media? To follow us, search lastshow.pizza on your favorite social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. Watch some of the smartest people we can find answering some of the dumbest questions we can think of on The Last Show's social media. Coming up next, new technology. It often feels like we're living in an episode of Black Mirror, that near-future dystopian TV show. But are we unleashing a monkey's paw, where we get what we wish for, but things are dark and ugly? That after the break.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Marvel Television's Wonder Man, an 8-episode series, now streaming on Disney+.
A superhero remake, not exactly what we'd expect from an Oscar-winning director.
Action! Simon Williams, audition for Wonder Man.
I'm gonna need you to sign this, assuming you don't have superpowers.
I'll never work again if anyone found out.
My lips are sealed.
Marvel Television's Wonder Man. All 8 episodes now streaming, only on Disney+.
We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The Last Show with David Cooper.
New technology. With what's available today, it feels like we're living in an episode of the TV show Black Mirror. That's the near-future dystopian show where sci-fi tech kind of ruins everybody's life. We're talking about how we're basically already there. The show was a great predictor of what's happening now, at least some episodes. We're joined by Nathan Radke, a professor of conspiracy studies. Check out his podcast, The Uncover Up. Check out his upcoming book called The Uncover Up. Huh? Nathan Radke, welcome. You got a book coming up.
Yeah, thanks for the book plug. That was sweet of you.
You can pre-order it, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Black Mirror, it is a weird show because I remember watching it like 10 years ago thinking this is basically an inch away from where we are now. Now, some of the episodes, thank goodness, have not come true, but some of them were really good predictors of what was going to come.
Yeah, I mean, Black Mirror, it's a Twilight Zone-esque show. The implications of new digital technologies are portrayed in a terrifying manner, as they often deserve to be. Things like surveillance and AI and social media and robotics. So it's easy to see why a show like that would be relevant. In fact, it's so relevant that a lot of people have noted that more than a few Black Mirror episodes have ended up coming true.
The one that really scares me is this like social credit system. I don't know if it's what they called it on the show, but like how you do on social media assigns you some number, and then the government treats you a certain way based on that number. If it gets too low, it's like you've committed a criminal act. This is like, the worry is the government's compiling these numbers on you without you knowing. And then this has already been implemented by some countries, at least in some form.
Yeah, this was an episode called Nosedive from season 3. And at first, this idea seems sort of satisfying. I mean, this is the problem with a lot of these texts, is that they kind of promise something that almost tempts you a little bit. Because we already do this sort of social credit rating for Uber drivers and eBay sellers. Why not everyone we encounter in our daily lives? Think about how satisfying it would be. You get cut off in traffic. And instead of just flipping the bird at the guy, you give the driver of the car a bad review, which maybe makes it hard for him to buy a house. Just imagine how much better behaved everyone would be if they knew that they were being publicly ranked all of the time. But of course, in classic Black Mirror fashion, this could and will go extremely poorly. I mean, if you're an Uber passenger and you start drifting below 4.5 stars, you can start finding yourselves waiting longer to get a ride or maybe not getting a ride at all. Now, because you were having a bad day a few weeks earlier, you're trapped in a rainstorm instead of hopping into a car. For drivers, They operate on slim margins anyway, and losing their star status can cause them financial peril. And on a society-wide level, who is it exactly that gets to decide what's antisocial and what's pro-social? I mean,
the people in power? I mean,
exactly. That's how it always goes. It's easy to see how it could switch from what's good for society to what's good for the people in charge. And as you mentioned, we did sort of see this implemented. In 2020, the Chinese city of Suzhou implemented a new system of digitally ranking and evaluating citizens for their behavior. Everybody starts with 1,000 points. You lose points for antisocial activity. You gain points for pro-social activity. And people with higher scores would be given preference for getting jobs and enrolling in schools. And this ran as a trial. It was a very unpopular idea, but we have the tech for it, and you could definitely see something like this being implemented on a wider scale.
The weird thing is, if it's implemented properly in like a utopian society with fairness and a way to correct your number by doing charitable acts or engaging in actual pro-social behavior, it doesn't sound all that bad until you start to think about who's running the system, why are they running it, and what are the ways in which it works badly or wrong or unfairly, and then it's a total nightmare.
Yeah, and this is the classic thing about utopias and dystopias, is that they're so close to each other. This sort of paradise idea that you can conceive of, once you start enacting it, of course, humans get in the way and all of our frailties and our flaws. And it's really, really easy to tip over from utopia into dystopia, especially when you have the kind of reach and the kind of abilities that we have now because of digital media technology.
About a couple weeks ago on the show, we covered a new patent filed by Facebook, basically Death Book. Facebook would use AI to train their models on your deceased loved ones and friends' Facebook page, private messages, interactions online, in a way to resurrect them and create a chatbot that was like them. Now, they just patented the tech. They're not deploying it right now, they're saying. But basically, there are other companies and people out there trying to resurrect your loved ones as a chatbot. And there's a Black Mirror episode about that too.
Yeah, it was season 2's Be Right Back. A woman's partner is killed in a car crash, so a company builds her an AI version of him based on his online communications and social media posts. And again, at first, this makes perfect sense. Loss is a terrible thing. Grief is hard to bear. I remember when my mom died, I spent months wishing that I could at least still text with her a little bit. And lots of people feel that way about their loved ones. It's why an entire industry sprung up at the end of the 19th century with people in dark rooms with crystal balls who promised that they could communicate with your dead loved ones. But, of course, these days, who needs crystal balls and incense when you've got AI chatbots? You could feed all of your loved ones' social media hot takes and drunken emails into it, mix in a few voice notes so that the chatbot even sounds like the person, and voila, it's as if the person has never died.
It is. There's also another one, we didn't talk about it at the break, but subscription-based healthcare. There's an episode where there's some, implant this woman needs in her brain or something to stay alive because she's got this terminal illness, but it's a subscription service, and if she can't pay it, it downgrades her reality. I feel like we're not too far away from that. Everything's subscription-based these days. What if there is some healthcare that, implant or something, and you got to pay a monthly fee? What happens if you can't pay it?
Well, what happens is it turns from a subscription model into more of a blackmail model. I mean, think about what we were just talking about where you can recreate a dead loved one with AI. I mean, the mediums back in the day in the 19th century, they could use their position as the voice of your dead loved one to take a financial advantage of you. But scams have gotten so much more sophisticated since then. These days, it could be a subscription model. Keep your dead loved one alive for only $12 a month or $10 a month with commercials.
Oh, God. So where does that leave us? Where does that leave us in terms of what dystopian technology is here right now in our faces that just kind of got foisted on us? It got forced on us, whether we liked it or not.
Well, I think where it leaves us, and I think everybody listening to this is going to kind of agree, it leaves us in kind of an exhausted state. We feel like we are bombarded constantly. The reason a good Black Mirror episode is so effective is because even though it's about futuristic tech, it also goes back to an old-fashioned kind of story trope, which is the monkey's paw.
Okay.
So the idea of the monkey's paw is you get this magical device, and this magical device promises to solve all of your problems, and it comes from, of course, the famous short story. But then when you use it, it does exactly what you ask it to do, but it also turns out there's some horrifying consequences that you didn't foresee. So a monkey's paw is a curse, but it's disguised as a blessing. It's poison, but it's coated in sugar. And the lesson to every monkey's paw story is, of course, when you're offered one, don't take it. But these days, it seems like we're not even being offered technological monkey's paws. We're just being presented with them against our will. And we're being forced to live out the unintended consequences without necessarily even seeing any kind of benefit.
It's the old be careful what you wish for. Side note, always wish for more genies if the genie tells you you can't wish for more wishes. But that's just a little loophole. But yeah, it's like
consumer advice there.
Okay, so here's a wish that I think some people, especially people who like gambling, would like. The ability to bet on anything. This technology is here. I'm not sure it's actually legal where you live in Canada, but here in the US, there's a company called Polymarket. These are called predictions markets, and it's the tech and the infrastructure and the ability to bet on anything. Sports, celebrity breakups, elections, and of course, war, Nathan. Like, perhaps I want to bet on a foreign leader being deposed. Does this sound familiar to you?
It sounds familiar, and this is one of those cases where I feel like reality has gotten out ahead of shows like Black Mirror, and that our actual real world is getting in some ways darker and stranger and more alarming than even our fiction is.
And before the break, I'm going to set this up for you. Stock markets and the government bodies that regulate them have strict rules about manipulating markets. You know, you can't do things that'll affect the stock price other than what's allowed by law, because it would be unfair. You basically would be influencing an outcome based on what you've invested in. There is very little to no regulation on these prediction markets. For example, if you have information, inside information, or maybe you manipulate an outcome, maybe you like have a athlete beaten up. We're here. This technology's right here. We're here discussing this with Nathan Radke. It's Conspiracy Corner. When we come back, our prediction market's going to get us all destroyed.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Eczema is unpredictable, but you can flare less with Ebglyss, a once-monthly treatment for moderate to severe eczema. After an initial 4-month or longer dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
We work hard to strike the right amount of intelligence and ignorance. The last show with David Cooper.
How safe is it really to allow people to make a bet on just about anything? Celebrity breakups, election outcomes, even war, perhaps the getting rid of a foreign leader. Well, this technology exists in some countries where they're legal. It's called predictions markets. And suddenly, gambling can be strange. It can cause unintended consequences. And are we heading towards disaster with these markets? That is the question we're going to explore here on Conspiracy Corner with Nathan Radke, who is a professor of conspiracy studies. Check out his podcast. It's called The Uncover Up. Nathan, welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks for having me back.
So to me, prediction markets sound like, I don't know, the world's ugliest stock exchange, people betting on government coups, assassinations, wars. And some people can actually affect the outcome of these events. Imagine some high-ranking government official making a bet on what an army will do, but they actually have some sway on what that army does. That's really ugly to me.
Yeah, it's ugly and it's disturbing. So things like Polymarket, they're crypto-based sites. And so already that sort of adds an element of
sketchiness,
technological sketchiness to it. It is illegal in my province of Ontario. But the idea is that users can make bets on real-world events. So you're presented with a number of scenarios with expiry dates. And you can either invest in, yes, it will happen by this date, or no, it won't happen by this date. Then once the deadline passes, anyone who invested in the correct answer gets paid. Everyone else loses. And the more unlikely an event is, the less people will invest into happening. And so the better the payout, if it does happen. You're better off if you bet on something that is unexpected that ends up occurring.
What do you call that in horse racing? The
long shot.
The long shot. How did I forget that? Taking a long shot, like some foreign leader will be deposed.
Exactly. And so you can invest in the outcome of sporting events or Oscar winners or elections. And there's some odder options as well. I checked yesterday. Polymarket said there was only an 18% chance that the American government will confirm that aliens exist by the end of this year.
Oh, okay. Well, that one's just fun. I mean...
Yeah, that one's fine. A 4% chance that Jesus returns by the end of the year.
Okay.
And like there is an appeal to tech like this because some have argued, again, the utopians, the techno-utopians amongst us, they've argued that Polymarket is an excellent source to assess the likelihood of things occurring because of something called the wisdom of the crowd.
Don't we always talk about the foolishness of the crowd, like mob mentality, like stampedes, things like this?
Yeah, so this is sort of the opposite of that because this idea of the wisdom of the crowd is based on an experiment. Back in 1906 at a county fair, about 800 people took a guess about how much an ox weighed. And then afterwards, it was found that the average of everyone's guess was very, very close to the correct answer. So what's interesting about that is any individual in the crowd probably wouldn't have gotten it right. But as a collective unit, the crowd was very accurate. And so using this concept, it could be argued that Polymarket is the ultimate version of this. We can use the wisdom of the crowd to determine the likelihood of whether certain events will or will not occur in a given amount of time. And Polymarket itself has even positioned itself as a kind of oracle to be used by individuals or even governments to make decisions.
I see, like, for elections now, it's like, oh, polls say this, Polymarket says this, you know, like, oh, Polymarket says Trump is going to do this or this is going to happen in the next presidential election. I hate that, like, news websites are reporting on what these markets are saying because they're giving them that validity, that legitimacy.
Well, and we are starting to see this in mainstream news. You're completely correct. And it's because there is something about that veneer of saying, oh, what are the markets saying?
Yeah.
Like, that seems to give it this sort of like this heft, this kind of seriousness. But as you would expect, and as you've already predicted, there are some serious, serious problems with all of these ideas.
The problem is you're participating in the outcome. When, let's say you make a huge bet, a billionaire makes a bet that some foreign leader is going to be deposed, then it gets reported, and then government officials are like, oh, should we depose this leader? Like the people think we should. All of a sudden you've like influenced the outcome with your bet that is contingent on the outcome. And it can lead to all kinds of wild, unintended side effects when what you're playing with is real world events.
Yeah, there's a reason why we don't want our athletes putting wagers down on sporting events because that's going to affect the sporting event. I mean, that's just one of the issues. I mean, crowds don't automatically have some kind of special insight. The famous crowd from the experiment that guessed the weight of the ox at the county fair, they would have had a lot of experience and knowledge about ox weights. They weren't just coming in blank. And as you've pointed out, crowds can be manipulated as well. If you had primed that crowd ahead of time, even a little bit, even subtly, you could have sent their estimate higher or lower depending on where you want it to go. But the main issue, and this is what we've talked about, is that the odds on Polymarket are affected by the wagers, which means that there are several disturbing ways to play with the way the site works. Because let's say you're a state and you want to invade another state, but you want it to be a surprise because the best invasions are always surprising. But you know that the government of the state you're about to invade uses Polymarket to make predictions which affect policies. So you place a few $1 million of bets against the invasion, which then drops the likelihood of that happening on the site. Your enemy looks at the odds and says, hey, I guess we're safe for now. And then you roll the tanks in. Because a few $1 million is peanuts to spend on an effective disinformation campaign.
Should governments be monitoring these markets and trying to like come up with a strategy? Like it's just so sick. The more you dig into it, and the more you dig into the ugly possible outcomes, like to me, there's no good reason why we should allow this kind of betting.
No, I mean, they absolutely should not be because it is in no way is it safe. Instead, what you have here, rather than an accurate way to gauge the wisdom of the crowd, as many problems as there are with that anyway, what you've ended up with here is yet another vector through which wealthy and powerful people can expand their influence over other people's beliefs just by throwing money around.
Not to mention like manipulation, right? Here's an ugly example. Well, we don't need to talk about governments and wars. I think I said this before the break. You place a big bet on an athlete to lose, but you're secretly a mobster. You have power in that way. And then you send out one of your henchmen to break the athlete's leg before the game. You know, like you could manipulate real world events to make yourself richer and cause horrible consequences, horrible outcomes for people.
Well, what's fascinating about this is that conspiracy theories always have some kind of esoteric or complicated explanation for the motivations of these sinister groups that are controlling things from behind the scenes. But the truth of the matter is, and we're seeing it in stuff like this polymarket problem, motivations are often a lot simpler than we expect.
Money.
Exactly. Financial motivations are amongst the most common. So we could be in a situation where there are shadowy groups manipulating the world from behind the scenes, but they're just doing it to improve their crypto portfolio. And there's some even more disturbing aspects than that we can look at.
Well, let's quickly look at them.
Okay, so what if people in power start using polymarket as a way of just grabbing some quick cash? I mean, as hard as it may be to believe that people in power would be so venal and greedy to abuse their position to make some cash, but right before the American invasions of Venezuela and Iran, there were very large bets made on polymarket that those events would occur. And the odds were very slim at that point, so those bets made a lot of money. And we don't know who made those bets because of crypto. So we don't know if there were people who had inside knowledge, but they easily could have been. But the most disturbing possibility of all, what if people in positions of power start making decisions that cause events to happen in order to clean up on polymarket? Because then at this point, it's not that these markets are predicting the future. They're incentivizing people to make specific futures happen.
Okay, on the flip side, what if they make bets to universal healthcare is going to happen? Like, could this be used for good, even though the shadowy figures are behind the scenes? Can't we just tell them to profit illegally and unethically? Although I'm not even sure it's illegal. That's the scary thing. But could we just incentivize them to profit off of positive world events? Like, can't we just flip the script here? I bet that we're not going to invade a country by this date.
So what I've just heard from you is, hey, can't we use this monkey's paw to maybe wish for some good things?
Well, I know the answer is no, but I'm just because this technology exists. It's here with us. What do we do?
Well, I mean, the answer is probably going to be regulation, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because, of course, then the people who have to decide about the regulations are going to be the people who benefit from the lack of regulations.
Well, you can check out Nathan Radke's podcast, The Uncover Up. He's a professor of conspiracy studies at Hampton Polytechnic. Nathan, I wish we had more time. It's been a joy having you on the show.
Well, I'm always happy to be here.
Coming up, what if our obsession with happiness is making us miserable? Also, what is happiness? A philosopher joins me to unpack the strange modern problem of chasing happiness.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Sierra has all the best active and outdoor brands you need. From athletic stuff, like a full court pickup game, swish, to athletic-ish stuff, like a half-mile stroll. Get those steps in. And for morning hikes up the mountain trail, good pace. To nighttime ghost stories from the camping chair. What a twist. Whatever level of active, Sierra loves it all. Head to Sierra or Sierra.com for the brands you want at the prices that let you do it all. From athletic to athletic-ish, Sierra's got it.
Smart, sharp, and slightly unhinged. Late night's fresh perspective. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Everybody wants to be happy, but what does that actually mean? What is happiness exactly? Is it a feeling, a life well lived, or something being sold to you by algorithms, marketers, and the self-help aisle? Well, we're here with a philosopher who might help us untangle that question and rethink what happiness is. He's a philosophy professor at Northwest University in South Africa, and his name is Anné Verhoef. Anné, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you, David.
It's so common to hear people say, I just want to be happy. What do you think someone means when they say that? Because to me, it's not always obvious.
Yeah, I think people often say, like we do with birthdays, happy birthday or happy new year, or I wish my children happiness or my friends. But somehow we lost the content or the meaning of the word. It's just the empty word. We use. So I started to rethink what we actually mean with it. So if I can just give a little bit background on this word, of course, it was something really meaningful for Aristotle in antique philosophy, who said happiness is eudaimonia, to have a good ethical life. And then later on, we saw in the Middle Ages, happiness became basically God, that you can only find happiness in God. But that changed with the modern age, with the Renaissance, where humankind, human beings became more important and their own happiness. So there became a new way of living where we were trying to be happy, to obtain it, and not link it only to God. It's even a right to pursue happiness in America.
It is. It's right there in that, the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution?
Right, yeah. But of course, you're right that happiness is so strange. People will often say it's something too personal to define, or it's so relative. For me, it's eating chocolate. Somebody else will go to the gym and say, no, it was happiness they experienced there doing tough exercise. So the problem with happiness often is that people give up on answering this question, say it's too relative, we cannot answer it. But somehow it does slip back to us through the definition we get of happiness through consumerism, that basically sell us what's happiness to sell more products. We get a definition through the happiness sciences that reduce it to a certain form of happiness and then want us to achieve that through self-help books. And of course, happiness is still promised through so many religions that it's only to be found in the relationship with God or in the afterlife or nirvana.
It kind of reminds me of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Like they figure out the answer to the life universe and everything. It's the number 42, but they don't know what the question is. Like these books, influencers, marketers, they're just selling us something that'll make you happy, but they're kind of skipping the deep question of what is happiness.
Yeah, so they basically want to sell anything, and happiness became a good medium, like sex, to sell certain products. So we saw that with a big campaign of Coca-Cola that basically said happiness is inside. And certain cars marketed that if you drive that car, you will experience happiness. You will find happiness all over in the marketing world. But what makes this, I think, worrisome and really problematic nowadays is that a kind of happiness and association of happiness with certain products and a certain lifestyle are really marketed within the digital world through influencers, for example, through people doing it unconsciously, taking photos of food or happy places, happy faces. And that all creates a sort of feeling or the perfect picture of happiness. And then, of course, that is built into the algorithms of so many AI tools and digital platforms that manipulates us in the end to really try to work or obtain that kind of happiness. But it's actually just limited to certain products and a certain lifestyle.
Is happiness just about experiencing joy and positive emotions? Because for me, some of the things that have made me feel a great sense of purpose, meaning, something I want to do, are the whole range of human experience. I mean, take, for example, kids. I don't have kids, but people say kids give them great joy. Well, the experience of having a baby is not all joyful. That thing's crying at 2 a.m., but it's the whole range of human experience that you go through over time that can give you happiness. Am I on to something here? Am I getting close?
No, definitely. So people often would say happiness is children, and then they would refer to small children, not teenagers, for example. But happiness is defined within let's say, the happiness sciences, and specifically in positive psychology, as a state of mind, this feeling of joy, of pleasure. It's a mood. But that's I would say, the most narrow or reductive understanding of happiness. It's part of happiness, but that's such a short-lived type of experience that we cannot just say that is happiness. If we do that, we will live from one exciting experience or pleasure moment to the next. Then we're trapped in the hedonic treadmill. So we cannot just define happiness with pleasure, joy, with a state of mind. The bad side of that would be that people start to use drugs to have that experience the whole time. So happiness have been defined in many more ways. which I can quickly explain.
I think for me, I kind of get the problem, but the question, what is happiness then? I'm still kind of hazy on the answer. So please give me some guidance here.
So I think a good starting point for understanding happiness is to explain it as a good experience. Of course, that experience of joy and pleasure, but we see now in the happiness sciences, positive psychology, say no, it's more. It's a well-being, to be healthy and wealthy, to be successful, to have a good life in terms of your children are achieving, you are doing good in your career, things like that. So the circle is a little bit wider. But then there's a further definition to say, no, it's not all about me. It's also leading an ethical life to ensure others are also happy, that I find happiness in the fact that others are also happy. So it's already a little bit broader. This is Aristotle's understanding of happiness. But happiness can also include luck, just to win the lotto or just to receive certain things out of the blue. That can also be happiness. Why not?
But that's not in your control, which is a little scary, I guess.
Exactly. So if you start to define happiness as a more comprehensive term, you are challenged with two things, and that I explore in my book. The first is the unhappiness that is basically always there. Even in moments of extreme happiness, unhappiness is not deleted or overcome. But so many people would argue for a kind of happiness that would try to delete or move away from unhappiness. And that is extremely exhausting. Life is never without unhappiness. Even if we just have in our memory some examples of moments of unhappiness. So in a way, we have to think happiness, unhappiness together. And the second thing, which I argue for, is that we think about chance, luck, and tragedy at the same time if we think about happiness.
Now, where does purpose come in? Drive, feeling like you're on a path in your life towards something and enjoying that path, not just focusing on the destination.
Yes, so that's another way of understanding happiness. I explain the circles that can get wider and bigger. So some people say, no, it's a meaningful life, or to have a drive or purpose or destiny. That is what happiness is. But the problem with that is that it's often something that is lost through life, a feeling of purpose, a feeling of meaning, being content with this life. So even that can be challenged. As soon as we make that a criteria for happiness, it might exclude people who don't, who'd never experienced that and would say it's anyway possible.
Anné, I've enjoyed this chat I've very much. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Is the time up already?
It is, yeah.
It was a pleasure, and I hope all your listeners will be happy after they listen to this interview.
I think that's the hope as well. Anné Verhoef is a philosophy professor at Northwest University in South Africa. Anné, again, thank you for being here.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, David.
Dead artists back on the stage as AI holograms, cool tribute or digital grave robbing. After the break, why many fans say ethics matter more than the tech at these concerts.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Exploring both interstellar and interpersonal space-time continuums. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Want to see a hologram concert of your favorite artist and you have maybe mixed feelings about it? Did the artist consent to the show? If they are deceased, was it planned and designed respecting the artist's legacy? These are pretty big questions and important to most people, and that's exactly what Seden Dogan studied. She's a hospitality and tourism professor at the University of South Florida, and we're going to talk all things hologram concerts. Seden, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So I've never been to one of these concerts.
Me neither.
But I kind of picture like a futuristic sci-fi spectacle. Is that what audience are looking for? Are they just looking for the spectacle of it all? Or are they looking for something that really honors the tribute of the artist?
If you ask me as an individual, not a professor or researcher, I would say, oh my God, this is really cool idea. And I'm a big fan of technology. I was, I think, 7 years old when I saw the Star Wars movie for the first time. And I was like, oh my God, robots and all the other technology is really cool. So that's why I'm like a technology researcher, especially in the hospitality and tourism industry. But my research showed the opposite. I mean, the results show that people are really amazed by the technology, but technology itself was not the only thing that participants or potential attendees would decide to go that type of an event.
So when people do go and they see a hologram of a musician, for example, one that's no longer alive, what are they reacting to in that concert? Is it just the technology, the spectacle, or is it the nostalgia, or maybe that feeling that they're somehow interacting with the artist's legacy?
Yeah, I mean, in the study, we focused actually 3 additional things: nostalgia, uniqueness, and ethicality. So I wanted to understand the human side of experience, not only the technology side. And one of the strongest reactions we found was nostalgia. So music is deeply tied to memory, and a song can instantly take you back to a moment in your life, maybe high school, maybe a road trip, right? Maybe a relationship. So when people see holographic performance of a legendary artist, like in my study, we showed the short video of Tupac concert, hologram concert. It's not just about technology. It's about reconnecting with humans, reconnecting with memories and humans and emotions and everything that are tied to the music, yeah.
So it's something closer to a memorial, perhaps, than it is just going to a concert.
Exactly. But the other thing surprised me and my co-author, of course, actually was about ethicality, the part of the event. So people are genuinely curious about questions like, did the artist approve this type of thing before they passed away? Or did the family give a permission? Was there a consent? And is this particular event honoring the artist or exploiting them? So in our study, ethical concerns turned out to be the strongest factor shaping people's reaction.
Look, I'm not a lawyer. I can't say I understand the legality of the entertainment business, but my understanding is artists, before they die or after they die, they can sell their catalog to large corporations, to record labels. Presumably, someone who owns a catalog could make a concert, but maybe not in a way that the estate or the family or the artist would have wanted in the first place. And in this case... Go ahead.
In this case, I don't think there is a regulation either, because this is a very new technology, very recent and innovative and emerging technology. I don't think there is a regulation about it.
Yeah, I suppose if they own the rights to the song, who knows about... I don't really understand the idea of the rights to a likeness, but I suppose we can put that aside for a second. But I guess this question, would I prefer a concert with an amazing spectacle, or where the technology is impressive, or would I prefer a concert that is respectful? What does respectful mean to a fan? Like, suppose I go and see Tupac and I want to make sure it's done in a way that Tupac would have wanted or his family would have wanted. What does that even mean for it to be respectful?
I mean, of course, I put myself in the participants' shoes, like attendees' shoes, and I feel like I would want to see the performance or the person, deceased person, in a respectful way performing on the stage, not like a disrespectful way. And on the other side, the consent is, we talked about it. I would want to make sure that deceased performer's family is also happy about it, and they gave permission and they were acknowledged before the performance. It's not a surprise for them. So the questions we asked in the study were basically showing that potential attendees are definitely paying more attention and paying more value for the ethicality from this perspective.
Onto these hologram performances themselves. To me, there's something kind of eerie about resurrecting an artist that's dead with holograms and AI. Do people in your study ever experience that kind of discomfort, thinking it's sort of like a digital zombie up there?
Yeah, in addition to multiple choice questions, there were a couple of open-ended questions. And almost half of the participants of the study found the video of Tupac. Because it was one video, it was one performance, it was one deceased artist. They were like, "Oh my God, this is so weird. I never want to go to this type of an event." And I'm teaching event technologies. In my class, I show the same video to my students and I ask, which are Gen Z, by the way, technology, tech-savvy people, right? They're like, no, I wouldn't. So I think there should be more research regarding this, because ABBA Voyage is another example. Elvis Presley World Tour is another example. So before moving forward, we should understand more and more what the people are thinking about it.
But ABBA is a perfect example of how these things can be successful. I mean, people love that experience. But I know many, if not all, I should have researched this, many, if not all of the members of ABBA are still alive. Like my girlfriend, she's an ABBA diehard fan. She went to the experience in London, England. What does ABBA Voyage get right that maybe other concerts might be getting wrong?
Because, as you mentioned, most of the members of ABBA are still alive, so they most probably gave consent, like permission, and I'm sure they wanted to see the 3D visualization of themselves in advance before the performance happened itself. So there is a slight difference between like somebody who's still alive and somebody died.
Now, these are for artists that have more recently passed, but like as this technology gets better, we could potentially have a new generation of artists who are long gone, like people who were famous in the 1920s, like Billie Holiday or something. Are these like moral questions around whether this is ethical? This is something that's coming whether we like it or not, I think.
Yes. I mean, think about even earlier phases. Think about more ancient figure comes to lie with this technology and do a speech or do a concert. But most of the family members already died as well. Think about somebody lived back in 1200s, 1300s.
Yeah, get an audience with, I don't know, Aristotle or something. Well, I've enjoyed chatting about your research, Seden. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Seden Dogan is a hospitality and tourism professor at the University of South Florida. After the break, two sisters who, because of divorce, skipped the whole nuclear family thing and built their own mommune. What does that mean? They raised their kids together for 12 years. Is this the future of parenting or just really smart sibling teamwork? We'll find out in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The last show with David Cooper, where we utilize non-linear reverse, inverse, backward thinking protocols. It sounds like this.
What happens when you raise kids, not as a two-parent job, mom and dad, but sort of like a small cooperative? Well, that's exactly what two sisters in London have done. For 12 years, they've shared a home, shared the parenting, and are kind of building their own modern family experiment. I'm here with the Gavin sisters, Loretta and Sharon. Loretta, Sharon, welcome to the show.
Hi. Hello. Thanks for having us. Thanks, David.
So first of all, what do you call this setup? Is it like a household? Is it a family? Is it another word that I just love and I'm hoping you'll say?
Well, they called it the mummune, didn't they? But I just want to first of all say that this wasn't designed. This wasn't something that we said, okay, let's do an experiment. Let's live together and see how this works. It wasn't like that at all. It was out of desperation, really. So we both got divorced. We were both single mums, and by accident we decided to kind of like move in together financially, but also emotionally, physically, everything to help each other. So it was a really happy accident. It wasn't our plan A. Our plan A was to stay married and have the perfect marriage with children, and it'd all be perfect. But it was a very nice plan B, and it worked out brilliantly.
I'm sure it did. And I think eventually it turned out to sort of the best plan B ever, is my understanding. The plan A, it doesn't often work for most people, like this idyllic family that you're describing.
No, it doesn't. And I think, I mean, in London, for example, in the UK, I think the rate is like 50% divorce. So there's like a lot of single parents out there. So I feel really blessed because I've never really felt like a proper single mum, because I've lived with my sister. I mean, even our kids, when we try and kind of make them feel sorry for us, we're like, we're single mums, we're trying our best. They're like, you're not single mums, actually, because you got each other. So they don't let us get away with that. But in some ways, it is actually true in all the ways that you need as a parent: the emotional support, the company, the laugh, the financial support with each other. So I've never really felt like a single mum, and I'm quite grateful for that, because I do think it's quite a tough job.
Living with your family, I'm sure it can be wonderful, but also dangerous. Like, me and my brother get in fights. They're so unique because he knows me so well, and he knows just how to cut me and twist the knife. Do you guys ever get into ridiculous sibling disagreements, but because you live together, it just gets so amplified?
Well, I have to say we are probably slightly unusual in the fact that we've got a very twin-like relationship, and we're really, really close. And obviously, we do fight. We wouldn't be normal if we didn't. But I have to say it's not very often. If we do, we're very honest with each other. We can say exactly what we think. We can say it how it is, and then it's all forgotten about, in a couple of hours' time. So we're blessed to have a relationship that is honest, and, it means that we don't have to play games or step on eggshells or, step around each other and think, oh, did I say something that upset her? She'll just go, you've been an idiot, stop it. You know what I mean? I think, we get asked that question quite a lot. We've done a lot of sort of press interviews, and sometimes we're like, oh, should we make things up? Because it sounds like, it doesn't sound real that we get on that well, but we actually do.
No, I believe it. We have to talk about your kids, because at some point living together, it switches from like cousin to near sibling for your kids. How do your kids get on? How do they like the situation?
Well, I think they're very much like siblings, really, and they don't know any different. So for them, it just feels very normal. It's only when they're exposed to school and they go, Florence now is like, she's a teenager and she's like, oh, Mum, you're so weird, we're not normal, that kind of stuff. But I think they're just so used to it. It becomes your normal only feels weird when other people go, oh, you live with your aunt? That's weird, But also they do see their dads. So it's not just like this whole female commune, mummune. They see their dads at the weekends, and they just live with the two of us. Do you know what I mean? So as Loretta says, it just becomes very normal. But they get on pretty well. I would think when they were younger, it was because of their age, they would kind of fall out a bit more. But now as teenagers, they get on really well.
Back to your plan A comment from earlier. People often talk about the nuclear family, mommy, daddy, maybe two kids, maybe the oldest one's a boy, who knows what, as kind of this default setting. Do you feel like you're rebelling against that? In my way, I do. I mean, I'm not the same as you, but like, I'm divorced. I was going down that path, and now I live with my partner, and we have no intention of getting married. We lived together for many years. I know it's not the same as you. We don't have kids. I don't live with my brother. But I guess what I'm trying to say is this nuclear family, when it doesn't work for somebody, what happens, and why might you want to rebel against it?
I suppose it's not intentionally rebelling. We've just rebelled, not on purpose. I do think that romantic love and romantic relationships are over-glorified, and, anything else is seen as less than. So I don't think we respect enough that friendship is just as important, and love can come in very different forms. It doesn't have to be romantic, and it can be just as powerful. So rebelling isn't probably the word, because I didn't do it on purpose. I did it out of necessity. But, you know, it's quite nice to feel that you're not doing what everyone else is doing, and actually you're finding a way that works. And actually, you know, years ago, communities did bring up children. It wasn't just this husband, wife, one child, and it was all very isolated. I think it's really good to have different influences and different generations, and the way that we used to live, you know, quite a few years ago.
There's also the financial and logistic aspect of it. I think there are people that kind of struggle alone and don't realize they can do something like you've done. For someone who's struggling and might have a sibling who's struggling too, what part of this lifestyle might you recommend or would surprise them if they only tried it?
I think, you know, we are quite unique because we get on really well. We get two responses. You know, it's generally, oh my God, I wish I wasn't married and lived with my sister. Or, oh my God, I could never live with my sister. So I think it's quite black and white. But obviously there's lots of upshots to it. Financially, you know, we share the bills, you know, we share the household. So that really helps. And then, you know, the other thing is, you know, as I said, is the emotional support. So if I'm not having a very good parenting day, I've got someone to pull me aside and go, you need to go for a walk. I'll take over. And I think, you know, that's not to be underestimated, because, you know, bringing up kids, you know, it's great when you've had a good day, but when you've had a bad day and you don't react well, sometimes you just need that other person to pull you up or help you or jump in or go, you need a break, go and have a cup of tea. So it's all that sort of stuff.
Now, at the beginning of the interview, I said it was a sort of social experiment. You said you didn't do it on purpose, of course, but if it were an experiment, what would some of the learnings be? What would some of the things that you would recommend that went right and went wrong with your setup?
I think it's mostly gone right, to be honest. So I just think having someone that you trust and that you love help bring up children, which is no easy feat, is an amazing benefit. The downside, well, I suppose, you know, as I said right at the beginning, having that male input, you know, father, mother, you know, I think that is probably the ideal. But if you can't get that, then I think it's a really good second best.
Also, just to add, the only downside I would say is that occasionally either one of us could stick up for our own child when the battles commence. I might be like, well, you didn't see before that moment and my son didn't say that. And it's very rare that happens because we tend to kind of back each other up. But that can happen.
Well, Loretta and Sharon Gavin are the Gavin Sisters. You can check out their podcast, The Gavin Sisters Wellness Show. I've enjoyed having you both on. Thanks for discussing your, living situation with me. It's been an interesting chat.
Thanks so much for having us. We've loved having this chat with you. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Coming up in a few moments' time. A new cancer treatment sounds like a prank, but it's real science. It involves gut microbes, immune systems, and has serious results. After the break, we'll meet the scientists working on evidence-based, totally safe for radio medicine involving poop pills. You heard that right. Poop pills up next.
Part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. When the day is done, we're just getting started. The last show with David Cooper.
Cancer research usually involves microscopes and molecules and not toilet humor. But what if one strange little capsule could boost immunotherapy, cut side effects, and change how we fight cancer forever? A promising new treatment now in clinical trials, and that treatment is poop pills. We're going to tell you about them with someone who's working on them. He's an immunologist and associate professor at Western University in Ontario, Canada. His name is Dr. Saman Maleki. Saman, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, David.
A topic for my heart, a poop pill. Let's start here. What is inside it? What is not inside it? And what is it?
Yeah. No, I appreciate the enthusiasm. So
it is derived from poop. So we have healthy donors. These are heavily screened, often college students that we screen to make sure that there is no infectious diseases. They are healthy. Everything's top notch. And then we get their poop. And the poop gets actually processed pretty much to its microbial components. And then it gets packaged in 3 layers of capsules. And you might have seen pictures of me holding the capsules on the internet. And then so the capsules gets frozen until a patient who is participating in one of our clinical trials identified that's eligible to take the poop pills. The patient undergoes a bowel prep, which is similar to older folks nowadays if they have done a colonoscopy. So
I'm about to do my first one. I'm turning 40 soon, but let's...
Okay, yeah. So that's exactly what our patients go through. So they do a bowel prep. They flush their native microbiome out the day before the treatment, and then they come to the clinic. Capsules gets defrosted. There is no taste. There's no odor. And they take about 35 to 40 of those capsules in about an hour. It's a lot. But that's about 80 to 100 gram equivalent of fresh stool that we got from a donor. And what we are hoping to achieve with that is that to transplant the donor's microbiome, the bugs that live in the donor's naturally microbiome, into the patient, into the recipient. And that changes the person's microbiome. Now they have a fresh biome. And we can get into details why that is and what it does.
Yeah, let's do that. The gut microbiome, for those listening, it's the community of microbes and bacteria in your stomach. It is so important for your health. I heard one person call it the forgotten organ. It's as important to your health as like other organs, like the liver or your heart. What is so important about it? What does our gut microbiome do for us?
That's a great question. And it is truly a forgotten organ. So these bacteria, these microorganisms have evolved with us for millennia. They have been living with us. In fact, when you have food every day, most of that food goes to feed these bacteria, believe it or not. And then they produce a whole bunch of metabolites and molecules that supports the rest of our bodies. So the metabolites that they're producing crosses from our intestine, gets into the blood, and through the bloodstream, it gets to different organs. You might even have heard of the term gut-brain axis. So your microbiome can control your mood. It can do a lot of things that affects your brain function, and that's only one of the organs. Another organ that it actually affects or gets affected quite a bit by our microbiome is the system that we call the immune system. So,
sure.
So the gut is the largest immune organ in our body because we have trillions of bugs living in the gut, and they have the largest number of immune cells living there to effectively they're regulating each other. They're constantly communicating. The bugs are producing these metabolites that regulates the immune system. Immune system is there to make sure everything's clean, everything's organized, nothing's getting on the other side to cause infections. So they're in constant crosstalk. And then when someone has cancer or an inflammatory condition or a disease like a chronic condition, so that microbiome, the gut microbiome, doesn't look normal or healthy anymore. For most part, it actually looks diseased. It's not doing its function that well. So, and then what happens, the idea here is that what happens if we reset the microbiome? We take somebody's healthy microbiome. It's like a kidney transplant, if you will. Get somebody's kidney, put it in somebody else's body who needs a kidney, and then you're hoping that the body accepts it. That actually happens again with our transplants as well. The process is the scientific term for this fecal microbiota transplant, which is a mouthful, or FMT, exactly meaning that you're getting stool from someone, processing the microbiome, putting it to somebody else. Now, if that new microbiome takes, now what happens is that it starts to communicate with the immune system. And why that is important in cancer patients, because a lot of drugs we're using today for cancer treatment work through the immune system, through activating the immune system. They don't directly cure cancer cells like chemotherapy drugs used to do. They actually go activate the immune cells, and the immune cells go and fight cancer. Now, these drugs are called immunotherapy. And now when you give somebody a new microbiome, that microbiome jumpstarts the immune system's function. And now you're giving it immunotherapy as well. And that helps to go be more efficient in the fight against cancer.
It sounds almost science fiction like a healthy poop donor helping your immune systems better attack cancer. What even gave you this idea? Like, how did you stumble upon this?
Yeah, that's remarkable. Actually, this is a bit of a long story, but I was a postdoc back in 2015 and 16 when I initially came up with this idea, and that's because I trained as a microbiologist, then immunologist, and I was working on a different project, and the idea in that project was, what is it that's a good biomarker for immune response? When I was doing the literature review, I stumbled upon this new data that was coming up showing that there is difference in the shape or composition of the microbiome in first animals, in the animal studies, and then patients who are responding better to treatment. And that gave me an idea instantly, which at the time was very out of the box, a bit crazy. And that was microbiome. It's something that's living in our body. It's malleable. We can change it. And I was like, we've been changing the microbiome forever. But why not do it in the context of cancer treatment? You can change some of this microbiome through exercise. You can change it through diet. You can change it through, effectively, antibiotics, which harms the microbiome quite a bit. But you can also change it through FMT. And we have been doing FMT here in Canada specifically for patients who have C. diff infections for many years. That was the initial idea for me to go and talk to my colleagues in the infectious disease department saying that, can we do this in cancer patients? And they were like, wow, nobody has asked us to do this in cancer patients.
So I maybe have cancer, regrettably. I take a poop pill from your clinical trial. How likely is it to work? What are the results?
Yeah, that's a great question. So far we have treated across different cancer sites that we've treated patients in different clinical trials. I can tell you that we've treated over 100 cancer patients. And what one, you may call it biomarker or hint that we have that this works is that the patients who can take this and keep it in their microbiome over time, that means their microbiome becomes like the donor microbiome, they do tend to do better. In the initial study that we published in Nature Medicine in melanoma patients, that's a deadly form of skin cancer a couple of years ago, we showed that there were certain characteristics in the patients that we are still studying that actually determines if they can be a host that can keep the donor microbiome. It's like, if you will, that the kidney transplant and it's not getting rejected. Mm-hmm. So one of them was that if their alpha diversity, that means the shape of their microbiome was actually more diseased than normal, believe it or not. And the reason for that, we think, is that when somebody's microbiome is actually less healthy, it's easier to change it. So we have good evidence in the C. diff world as well, rather than somebody's microbiome who's healthy. You look pretty healthy, so it might be more difficult to change your microbiome.
Well, thank you. Okay, we just have a few moments left. These results are promising, amazing. I love it, but it's clinical trials, not widely available. How soon will it be I go to an oncologist, a doctor, and I get a prescription for poop to help me out?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something that we are working on right now. We are building 2 randomized clinical trials, one in melanoma in 128 patients in Canada, and we just got funded to do the largest FMT trial with healthy donor poop in lung cancer, 160 patients. And hopefully, when that's positive, we can go to the FDA and Health Canada and make it available to everybody else.
Dr. Saman Maleki is an immunologist and associate professor at Western University in Toronto. Saman, I have enjoyed the chat. Thank you for educating us about this amazing poop pill, I don't know, technology, medicine, whatever you want to call it.
Thanks, David. Really appreciate having me.
All right, that's a wrap on our Tuesday night show. Don't forget to subscribe to the Last Show podcast. Find out more details at www.lastshow.pizza. That's our website. Subscribe to the podcast to listen to entire nights of this show, or just some of the great interviews you heard where you learned something. I'm David Cooper. This was not the first show. We'll be back tomorrow night.
This episode is brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. No matter how you do game day, on the couch, in the crowd, or manning the snack table, Athletic Brewing fits right in. With a full lineup of non-alcoholic beer styles, you can enjoy bold flavors all game long. No hangovers, no buzz, no subbing out for water in the second half. Stock the fridge for tip-off with a variety of non-alcoholic craft styles available at your local grocery store or online at athleticbrewing.com. Near beer, fit for all times.